Welcome to the 7th episode of Hispaniola 2016 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Armstrong, and joining me as always is the Canadian who has spent the last 10 plus years on this podcast shouting at the TV and calling contestants ugly, selfish people, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who has been known to offer his hand to men of passion, David Bindley.
Good morning.
Good morning. I think there's only one bit of housekeeping that we need to get to. How did your quiz go last week, Logan?
It was really I can see why there's not many teams that go to the other quiz in town.
It sounds like you're being awfully Canadian about this and being a bit polite, assuming that your bitching is going to get back to them. Tell the truth.
Everyone was taken off guard because the host spoke like a kindergarten teacher the whole time. So that was kind of funny. And the questions were a lot of true or false or A or B, not A, B, C, or D. I think the biggest multiple choice one had 3 options. And the one geography question they had, it showed a picture of China and it said, which country is this, China or Russia? So needless to say, we got because it's split into there's 6 rounds, but the first 3 rounds and the final question is part of game 1, and then the next 3 rounds and that final question is part of game 2. So it's really 2 games in one night. So yeah, on the first game we got a perfect score, which anyone who has designed pub quizzes at all knows that if teams can get a perfect score, you made it way too easy. The winning team should be getting at least 3 questions wrong for the night, typically. But yeah, we got a perfect score. So we got a bunch of door prizes because of it. And then in the second half, we only missed 2 questions because the questions are a lot more random as well. For example, what was the one? Is it better to have a cat's water dish in a separate room from its food dish? Or that was one of the questions. It was true or false.
What?
Yes.
That is not general knowledge.
No. Or how many does a caramel bar have? More than or less than 300 calories? Except she forgot to edit out the 250 calorie label on the chocolate bar on the picture of it.
This sounds as chaotic as the one that I've mentioned before when my brother and I were on a cruise, probably best part of 10 years ago now, which was a black and white flag quiz.
Yeah, black and white flag quiz. Okay, so you'd get Jamaica, and that's probably about it.
Well, the hilarious thing is they were all in alphabetical order, so we got 19 out of 20 on that one. And the other one was the one who argued with us over how many countries border Switzerland. She claimed it was 2. And it's 5, I think it is, off the top of my head. She's like, which 2 countries border Switzerland? And then she tried arguing with us because her Swiss roommate claimed there were only 2. Her Swiss roommate, of course, living in a very narrow bit of Switzerland. And on a trivia note as well, since last week's podcast, the applications to Jeopardy UK have come out. I have obviously applied. I was one of the first people to apply for fairly obvious reasons.
And I'm sure you're one of the first people to get rejected.
Almost certainly. One of my friends has also applied before the official applications came out, so we'll see if either of us get on. By the time that this comes out, we will know for certain if either of us have got on, because it will have already filmed. Have you had a busy week, Bindles?
Not really.
Still off work?
Yeah. It's been nice to have a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I miss Cécile.
Yeah.
This episode was probably the best of the 7, but also it featured 100% less Cécile Nerynx, and that's a distinct negative for this episode.
Yeah.
Did this episode not mention Ellie Loost at all?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Because they did the happy birthday video for Cécile, but I don't think they mentioned Ellie Loost.
No, I don't think they did either, because there was no walkie-talkie challenge, was there?
Control room?
Well, yeah, but nobody shouted out to discipline at any point, did they?
One thing I forgot to note that we didn't talk about in the previous episode during the set design challenge is that Klaus still used Eter Disciplina because he said, "This is Klaus. We should put the flowers over here."
It's just become a meme at this point. Like, every single season after this pretty much has a tribute to Ellie Lust, if not someone directly name-checking her when they do a walkie-talkie challenge.
Whoop whoop, that's the sound of a callback.
So, previously the final 6 were tasked with set design inside a replication of Taka Takaman's mind, but all they earned was 4 yokers to be split between Tim, Taka, and Rop. Thought of that one after recording the last episode. I was very disappointed at myself for not making that joke. On a cable car ride, communication broke down between Tim and Taka, and another clusterfuck trying to replicate the family photo from episode 1 saw another challenge lost, and Cécile Narinx lead the game with her head held high and not having worn shit clothing. Art tells us that yet another woman has left the game. Cécile failed in her plan to get to the end while telling no lies. Exactly half of the cast are left now. There is a challenge coming up which could turn the game upside down and could give someone a path to the finale.
Yeah, Anamika's the only woman left. There are a lot of penises left in this game.
Just how you like it, Saunders. And the episode title is, appropriately, Something is Nothing. And they are lamenting the lack of DJ Cécile Narinx now that she's gone. They're taken to a luxury resort in the bus, interestingly labelled Contestants, on day 14 in Sosua, which I'm pretty sure was a Phil Collins song, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
So.
I don't listen to that much Phil Collins. He's not on my playlist.
Oh yeah, he's probably not reached Canada yet, has he? Forgot about that. Sorry, Saunders. There's a guy called Phil Collins who's going to become very big in Canada soon.
Okay, I'll keep my ears out for him.
Yeah. When you hear about Genesis, just wait a couple of years.
The only Genesis that Saunders is aware of right now is the first book of the Bible.
Oh, well, no, we just Sega Genesis. Sega.
No spoilers, but it does involve an apple.
Sounds fruity.
So Art tells them the Sandcastle Resort drew guests from all over the world, but now it is pretty much all abandoned. All they have to do is find their suitcases hidden around the resort to win money, but if the bellboys box them in, it is game over. There is a control room with 16 cameras where the others can keep an eye on them, and each suitcase returned to the control room within 45 minutes is worth €300 for the pots.
I noticed contestants aren't saying, "Whoa, control room challenge," like they do with the laser game.
Yeah, it's slightly less iconic to be just stuck in an abandoned place, shouting at someone through a walkie-talkie than it is to do laser game, as much as we bitch about it.
It's funny that this was a control room challenge, but yet it looked like they had absolutely no control over what went on in this challenge because they all sucked so badly.
And also, more importantly, it's a very lackluster control room. It's a projector and a ThinkPad. That is it. It's not the high-tech setup that we have seen in some of the control room challenges, with actual monitors, for example.
And surprisingly, production is willing to not make this an all-or-nothing challenge, and they'll actually give them €300 per suitcase.
Yeah, because they knew they were going to fuck up.
Yeah, won't make a difference.
Bindles and I were discussing this after we'd both watched the episode earlier. Like, this is a very cheap season for production, to the point where they are going to have to start throwing money at them to get them above the mythical €10,000 at some point.
Because I was thinking about that too, that they pretty much, that's just been the mindset that all fans have now, where if the final pot for WIDM is above 10,000, it means production wasn't trying to be complete jerks with being cheap for the season. But if it's below 10,000, then it just looks really bad. It just looks like a pitiful amount of money for the season.
Put it this way, I don't think it's a complete coincidence that Oregon, the season after this, ends with a double your money challenge.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to avoid the optics of how cheap Dominican Republic is for pretty much all the season. Because we're 7 episodes in and they end up with, what, €6,300 by the end of this one, roughly?
Yep.
I think it's 63.10 off the top of my head. I haven't scrolled down on my notes to double check that. But yeah, even the maximum up to this point is ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, it's like 32,000, I think I had in my notes. 33,000.
Yeah. And I think, and obviously we'll get to this in a couple of weeks' time, but I think amongst the many complaints about this season that the fans had, one of the major ones was almost certainly, Jesus Christ, stop being so cheap. So next season they course correct and they put in a lot less advantages and black exemptions and stuff. They only have them in the claw game challenge, but also they do have that double your money opportunity at the end of the season, which they've never done before and never do again, at least as of the time of recording.
It's funny to think that they're probably when they were playing Oregon, because that'd be a much more expensive filming location too. I can only imagine. Oh, fans don't want us to be as cheap, so we got to raise the pot and fire one employee from production. Somebody's getting the pink slip.
Sadly, it was the challenge designer.
To be fair, the cast probably cost them a lot less in Oregon because you have YouTubers, you have a lot less famous people.
Eurythmics.
Yeah.
And you also then have Eurythmics, who probably would have done it for about €10.
Yeah.
He would have done it for 1/1000th of an Ellie Loost.
Yeah, Ellie Loost has a big price tag on her head. But yeah, I don't think it's a complete coincidence that Oregon does end with the surprise, you can double your money if you win this challenge personally twist.
And then they're like, oh shit, they did double their money personally. Damn it.
And that's why they never do it again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of course correcting towards the end of Art's reign because you have the cheapness of Dominican Republic, you have doubling in Oregon, and then you have, right, we're just going to force them to absolutely hemorrhage money at the start of Georgia.
Yeah. And I think from memory, Sri Lanka is a really, really cheap season as well. But I think part of that is because they had to move it in a hurry, so they didn't really, they had to use sort of challenges that weren't quite challenges, which sort of affected how much they could have won.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, and I may be corrected on this, Sri Lanka did set the record at the time for the lowest final pot.
I think so.
And then that stayed in place for a few years before, the Rick era began.
Yeah.
But yeah, even Sri Lanka would have been incredibly expensive filming-wise because they were originally going to film in Russia.
Another failed Russia season.
Yeah, it was moved at the last second for, was it MH17, I think?
It's whichever one got shot down over Ukraine.
Yeah, that was MH17. That was a few weeks before they were meant to be filming in Russia.
And because there were a lot of Dutch people on that plane, they decided maybe not the best time to be doing that.
Yeah, and given how many non-straight people were on that season, that would have been a very interesting choice.
Yeah.
So they can see where the suitcases are, but not whereabouts in the resort they are, unless they look closely, as we find out at the end of the challenge. Anamika takes control of the walkie-talkie, Klaas the 12 interior cameras, Tim the controllable outside ones, and Tarka just being told not to touch anything that could be a live wire. And Rop is sent to enter the resort and basically disappears from the camera immediately. He does, however, find a pigsty.
I don't know whether the pigsty was put in there by production as a joke or whether there were just pigs in that hotel now.
I assume that it was just, oh shit, we didn't even know about the pigs being here.
Yeah.
I wish they would have used cops instead of bellboys to chase them around, so that on the walkie-talkie, Anamika could say, "Oh, you're being chased by the pigs." So the contestants say, "The pigs are chasing you down." Ah, those damn pigs. Oh, she meant there are literal pigs chasing me down, not the police, not the slang for the police.
It's the filth.
It's like that thing a few years ago about how there was that guy who got in trouble for smashing an egg over a Nazi's face. And then, they had
What?
There was this thing a few years ago where some teenager basically went to this rally where a neo-Nazi politician. I don't know whether neo-Nazi is the official term, but it's basically the same sort of belief system. Went to I guess some rally or something where he was speaking, snuck in with a bunch of eggs and started smashing them over his head while he was doing a press briefing. And then, the cops, being fans of the neo-Nazis, were there. And instead of, running off or whatever, he just goes, "Oh, here comes the bacon about the eggs."
I'm not sure to segue back to the episode.
Yeah. Good luck.
But I mean, thinking about what we know about pigs in that area of the world, they're not a million miles from Cuba in the Dominican Republic.
They're not too far away from the Bay of Pigs. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, they basically could have swum from the Bay of Pigs at this point.
Yeah.
Or the Bahamas. There's those swimming pigs in the Bahamas.
Yeah. I think the Bahamas are a bit further than Cuba is from Dominican Republic, although my geography of that area of the world is a bit rusty.
Let's see. Oh yeah, Cuba would definitely be closer. Because Bahamas are Bahamas are east of Florida.
Yeah, because I I didn't go as far north as the Dominican Republic or Cuba, but they appeared on our Google Maps when we did the Caribbean last year.
Huh.
So I'm pretty sure Cuba's not that far from Dominican Republic. I can't remember what order it is going up that line of islands, but I think Hispaniola's next to Cuba.
Yeah, I think Cuba's on
Yeah,
the left,
it's to the east.
Hispaniola's
It's
on
to
the
the
right,
east
and
of
then,
Cuba.
Yeah.
and then I think
If
Jamaica's the next one over.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I remember rightly, it's Cuba, Hispaniola, then Jamaica.
Jamaica's south of Cuba. It's
Oh.
west. Jamaica's west of Haiti, south of Cuba.
Yeah, but in terms of the line that goes round from east to west, it's Cuba, Hispaniola, then Jamaica. It goes down to Jamaica, but it's still west, is what I'm saying. So I'm right in summary.
I went looking for this hotel,
Yeah.
and it's got a really boring story as to why it's abandoned.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
We love boring stories on this podcast. We've done 500 and odd episodes at this point of them.
they basically got sold to a company who decided to try selling it as timeshares, not realizing that that's not legal in the Dominican Republic. So when they couldn't get any buyers, they went belly up. And now the beach is contaminated by raw sewage.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So the first bellboy does see Rop, and he starts his slow-moving chase. Rop is eliminated when he goes into a room and is followed by a bellboy. However, his run was essentially pointless because he wasn't really seen on screen that much, just like the rest of the season. Taka is then the second to be sacrificed, obviously. I mean, you keep the other three in because they know what they're doing and can tie their own shoelaces. Klaas says that he's someone who fully commits, like when he decided to lick a frozen signpost for €10. He finds Rop's suitcase on the first floor, but it's useless now as they can only take their own suitcases. And he relates another location while being chased by a bellboy around a pool, and him and his sweaty back are then eliminated. Between Rop and Taka, they used up over half of the time, 25 minutes, leaving only 20 minutes for the other three. Klaas is then third up. He finds the suitcase that Taka mentioned, but unfortunately for him, it is Tim's. He then runs in front of a bellboy and gets himself caught, leaving just 7 minutes for Anamika and Tim.
Less than 7 minutes.
I was being generous by saying 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Tim's then forced to finally go and find that suitcase they know about, but he can't see it. Anamika then leads him to the first floor, away from where Klaas saw it. And he finally spots it over a balcony and vaults it to grab his suitcase, and brings it back to the control room with 5 seconds left on the clock.
They were this close to being a complete dud of a group for this challenge.
This is a genuinely dangerous challenge, because when Tim vaults that fence, you do hear that he just stands on smashed glass. I presume it was a beer bottle. You can see quite a lot of abandoned beer bottles there. But throughout the season, Tim is not wearing very sturdy footwear. I think he wears Converse pretty much every single challenge. That's not the sort of thing you should be walking on broken glass with.
No.
Yeah, you don't want to walk on broken glass with that.
I know we joke a lot of the time that some of these warehouse locations aren't the most safe, but this abandoned resort is one of the least safe locations I think they've ever used on a mole challenge.
Yeah.
Annie Lennox would have loved it.
That's more of a modern Canadian reference. I should have gone Eurythmics rather than Phil Collins, shouldn't I? Art then reunites them all and says that it seems as if there are 5 moles still left in the game. None of them noticed that each camera showed the block that it faced, which would have helped orientate them and find their suitcases. They returned 1 suitcase for a total of €300 or 1,500 for the challenge, and Anamika admits to the group that she spotted the numbers, but with only a minute to go.
It's like Art had written like 5 jokes during the challenge to roast them afterwards, and he was just rattling them off one after the other. It seems as if there are 5 moles in front of me. That's how blind you are. With this group, I don't know how much 1 + 1 is.
And then Tim just says 1.
Yeah, just as one suitcase.
You know how Bindles and I said last week that Tim is a low-key favourite of ours? This is the sort of thing we're talking about.
The only one who can spar with Art in banter.
He just doesn't give a shit who he offends sometimes. And it's delightful.
If I had to guess, Art in production was probably thinking that everyone for sure would have a chance to run out there, and that they were probably going to get 3 suitcases.
Yeah, this resort is not massive. They should not have wasted 25 minutes on the first runs.
It did not look like a bit. Yeah, I was knowing that. I'm thinking it feels like they even noted. They even said it during the challenge that was it Tim or Klaus who kept going to the same that just kept crossing their own path repeatedly over and over again.
Yeah.
Or it might have been Taka.
I think it was Tim with the terrible direction trying Mika.
Yeah.
She just kept leading him back to where Klaas blatantly said the suitcase wasn't.
Yeah, it's not as big as a Dutch theme park in Japan. It's not a big area.
No, this is Luxembourg village.
I don't know. I think Liechtenstein, which is a country that borders Switzerland.
Is it?
Oh,
I wasn't aware of
It's
that.
it's one of the two.
So in the evening, they head to the beach to make a video for Cécile, as day 14 is her birthday, so she missed celebrating it on the show by 1 day. And that does now finally mean we can confirm when the filming of this season was, which was the 15th of June as day 14, which is mega early by WIDM standards.
That'd be during wet season.
Yeah, usually it's sometime around August to October, I think they film. I seem to remember that Oregon filmed, it was like October into November, I think. And that was an election year. That was Trump's election year. It was 2016. I think they just missed the election from memory. And then Georgia was definitely into May because they had the Founders Day challenge or whatever it was with the Meet the Mole challenge. But yeah, 15th of June was day 14, which means that day 1 on the subway was the 2nd of June.
The first thought I had when they said that it would be Cécile's 62nd birthday is, oh man, I bet she's really good at bleating.
So, on that note, how far across the Alf-Brancorsius line do you think Cécile was in this season?
How far?
She was over the Alf-Brancorsius line, but by how many years?
Oh, what was it for? By 20?
Alf was 39. 39
Yeah.
in her season. Cécile was 45 in this season.
Why did they say she was 62?
Because they were
'Cause
just
it's
joking
10.
about how old she was, yeah.
Oh, just a random number.
Yeah, day 14 was her 45th birthday. So she was actually 44 when she filmed the season. So they meet Art in another abandoned building on day 15.
Is it just all abandoned buildings in Puerto Plata?
The budget has gone to shit in this season, evidently. It's just, yeah, let's take you to another slaughterhouse, another former mill building.
We can't rent out a building, so we've had location scouts just find buildings that are abandoned so that we don't need to apply for any filming permits.
And spoilers for the next couple of weeks, there are more abandoned buildings to come.
Yeah.
It's like Athens.
And he has a table and some blocks, which concerns Anamika as she doesn't do any sort of strategy game. Come back to that in about 10 minutes. He says 2 of them still have to go home before the finale. Who that is can be decided right now. Money exemptions and yokers are all on the table, and all they have to do is complete a set of 4 tiles to earn them. If they don't take the minus money in the game, they will earn €1,000 for the pot. And Tarka says he has 2 yokers already, so he was hoping that it would be something else.
He needs something else to get him through this.
I mean, I guess it's unusual that they've had Jokers 2 episodes in a row, but also it's not like there's been many chances for them to win any this season.
Yeah, I was thinking that, because obviously we're tainted by knowing that Oregon has 1 chance to earn any sort of yoker, I think, in the entire season, which is in the claw game. Maybe 2. No, actually, there's the branding one as well. I forgot about that one. But in terms of personal rewards, Oregon is very light on them. Dominican Republic, I forgot how light that is on them. Because you have the Path of Temptation, you have the White Rooms, and then this challenge, and that's basically it, I think.
Yeah. Sri Lanka is very heavy on them, so that maybe this is part of the course correction. Because Sri Lanka's got basically 2 challenges where they use jokers as an excuse to not pay them any money. And then they've got 2 non-eliminations, and then another Walk of Temptation, and a whole bunch of different shit.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it till I was watching this episode, but the last few art seasons definitely feel like a course correction from some of the complaints that you get. Not really with Hong Kong, Philippines, but certainly with Sri Lanka and certainly with Dominican Republic.
Yeah. If only they'd course correct now.
Yeah. Neither of these seasons are particularly popular with the public, I would say. Obviously, Sri Lanka's got a bit of an excuse with the last-minute switcheroo. Dominican Republic really doesn't. It's got a
Yeah.
great cast, but there are some problems with this season, which is kind of why we wanted to do it as a historians.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting season to talk about with all its flaws.
Yeah, like there's plenty of good stuff here. It's just it's surrounded by a mountain of crap.
Yeah. I mean, it's still better than pretty much anything WIDM puts out nowadays. And we say this knowing that we haven't seen Oman yet, and the trailer looks amazing.
As much as we love Oregon, I will say I think this cast is better. It's just they don't get anything to work with.
Yeah. The thing is, Oregon has the bright shining star of Emanuela Greaves.
Yeah.
It also has Thomas, who's wonderful. Diedrich, who I think I like more than you do.
Yeah.
Sana, who I love, because she's absolutely no nonsense. But it also has the crushing low of the existence of your own.
And then it's got, the interchangeable women who last like 2 episodes and then disappear.
Yeah, that's the advantage for Oregon, is the fact that all of the chaff of that season goes home very quickly.
Yeah, where this season, I think pretty much all of the chaff is still here after this episode.
Yeah. There are some bright spots in
Yeah.
this final 6, because I'm including Cécile, but there's also a lot of not so bright spots.
Yeah, but like if I had to pick the most boring people in this cast, I'd probably pick Rupp and Klaas.
Yeah. Both of them are still here in the final 5.
Yeah. And then maybe Marjolein, but at least Marjolein sort of felt like she could have been more entertaining. I don't think we would have ever gotten anything entertaining out of Klaas.
Yeah, and I'll also say this for the avoidance of doubt, going back to Oregon. No one remembers Sigrid. How can she be anyone's favourite in that season? So on the blocks are rewards, and each of them have to draw 3 of the blocks, place 1, and take another. Klaas has a take it card, which means he can steal anyone's reward at any point by completing 4 of them, and he wants to keep that as long as possible to try and steal the best reward. Tarka has an unfair advantage here, as no one could read what's in his mind. Anamika has to take a minus 250 to avoid making a group of 3 of something more advantageous. Tim then claims 2 Yokers. He says that it's the most nerve-wracking game so far. Rock claims a Yoker, not that we hear anything from him about it, nor at all during the season, to be honest. Anamika then claims the Black Exemption, but she knows it's dangerous as she could still have it stolen. Rock blocks another Black Exemption entering the game, before Anamika claims another 3 Yokers, and Tarka has to claim a minus 500 euros. Klaas then blocks a green exemption, and says his focus is on the Black Exemption. Rock blocks another Black Exemption, before Anamika claims another 3 Yokers. Tarka then takes the Black Exemption from her using a Take It card. Tim then claims another 2 Yokers, while Tarka claims 1. Klaas then uses the last Take It to steal the Black Exemption, while Anamika continues her dominance by taking a green exemption. And Tarka ends the game by putting down the final minus 250 euro block.
So to recap all of that, Tim gets 4 Jokers, Anamika gets 4 Jokers and an exemption, Tarka and Rupp get 1 Joker each, the group loses 1,000 euros, and Klaas gets a Black Exemption.
I think you'll find Anamika gets 6 Jokers, because she ends up giving 1 to Rupp. It's funny that you rattle off those stats, because that is the bonus question for this week's suspect list. Is what did the mole end up with after the match 4 challenge?
Black Exemption. The SWAT by Bleichstelling.
Interesting. Klaas says afterwards that he's not saying when the Black Exemption will get played, but there are only 2 rounds left where he could play it. That is also interesting, because I think it's usually established you can't play a Black or Green Exemption after Final 5.
So just this season, they just changed the rules temporarily?
Yeah, this is a very rare example of them not offering a Final 4 exemption, but also, as a result, letting a green exemption and a black exemption potentially get played at Final 4.
Yeah. I think they just really wanted the Black Exemption to be played.
Well, when there's only 2 rounds left, or either played at Final 5 or Final 4, I guess it's there's no way for it to not be played.
I think this challenge is sort of part of the course correction as well, because like sort of for probably about 5 or 6 seasons before this point, every time around this point in the season, they'd have an exemption for the finale. That's sort of some sort of like kids game. Like we had Go Fish one year. We had Connect 4 in Hong Kong, Philippines. There's one in South Africa. There's one in Sri Lanka. And then there's this one. And I think because this one kind of has a lot of prizes in there, but it's not really interesting because they're all so silent when they do it. The entire challenge basically has to be told through narration and confessionals after the fact. So I think it sort of robs it of the immediacy of the challenge a little bit. And then sort of next season they course correct and make it a more physical kids game. They use Capture the Flag. But then sort of after that, we don't really get a kids game again.
I will say, I like them doing a game like this at Final 5 rather than Final 4.
Yeah.
This isn't my favourite example of it because as much as the season's not great, South Africa's version of this is brilliant. But I like there being the danger at Final 5 execution, where someone has to defend their exemption up to finale, and it's not guaranteed that anyone will have an exemption up to finale.
Yeah, there's still a bit of strategy. It's not just win and you're in the final 3. You have to successfully navigate around everyone else's items.
Yeah, there is an inherent bit of jeopardy in this entire game and setup of, will someone play the black exemption? Will they save it for Final 4, where it will be a lethal weapon? Or will they just let you coast to the Final 3 if you get through Final 5? I like there being a bit of jeopardy to the exemption up to finale, which usually isn't in place in modern WIDM anymore.
Yeah. Were there enough tiles there for them to get 2 black exemptions in play? Because like they had two full sets of everything else. Or did they take some of the black exemptions out to make room for the blockers and the...
Well, we only saw 2 blockers played.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe they had 6 tiles for the black exemption instead of 8.
Yeah. I would assume if it was possible to earn the €1,000 by not claiming the minus money, there had to be at least 3 blockers, so we must have had some rounds cut out.
Yeah.
So maybe there was enough to do both black exemptions, I don't know.
One thing I noted about the challenge is it was played in complete silence.
Yep.
And actually, the camera angles were brilliant on it, to the point where I did have to pause at some point and go, well, I think that was Rop who just did that.
Yeah.
Because Rop, for all our jokes about Rop being completely invisible in this episode and in the season, they went out of their way to not show his face in this entire challenge. He claims a yoker, and we don't hear anything from him about it or even see him, apart from his hand. It's quite entertaining.
This was not filmed very well at all, this one.
No. So Art disturbs their lunch to collect the money that they owe him, dropping them down to €5,610. And he says he's also looking for 2 candidates with organisational skills, a bit of sales experience, and who are hospitable. And Tarka says that rules him out.
Yeah, because you can't spell it.
That is not how you spell hospital. And they end up choosing Rop and Tarka. I'm glad that Saunders finally gets that reference. Tonight they will be running a restaurant, but there are some essential bits missing, including a kitchen. They get 2,500 pesos as starting money and 2 bikes. If they can double their money, they will earn €1,000 for the pot. And on top of that, each additional peso that they earn will be times by 10 and then converted into euros. They have 90 minutes until doors open.
This is a fun one.
Yeah. I do hate any challenge that involves some harassing members of the public, but this one seems quite jovial. Everyone seems to be having a fun time, which really helps.
Even the locals, when they get in, when Tim and Klaus are talking to them and Taka, the locals just find it hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it helps that Tim and Taka do a lot of the interacting with the locals, and they are by far the 2 most entertaining people in this Final 5.
Mm-hmm. And I think Klaus needs to get his food safe license revoked. Especially with this chicken cooling method. That made my stomach churn. Yeah.
I think the funniest thing is, like, we see Klaus spitting on the chicken and there's a big thing about that. And then sort of like 10 seconds later, Annemieka's serving it up with her bare fingers.
Yeah.
Laura and Tyler from Amazing Race would love this challenge.
There are no raw potatoes here.
Yeah.
Taka says his only experience in hospitality is behind the bar, because of course it is.
Yeah, that is the most straight man coded non-joke you can imagine.
I know I'm making a lot of jokes about Taka, but if you had to guess where he'd worked in hospitality before, you'd guess behind the bar. He
Yeah.
seems like the sort. The other three arrive with 15 minutes to go, and Anamika and Rock become the waiters, Klaas and Tim get the food, and Taka works the bar and watches the money.
I think it's funny how, like, in 2000, whenever it was, one of the challenges on Belgium basically invented escape rooms. This challenge kind of invents dropshipping. I feel like that's maybe peak Dutch culture. Like, of course they do a boring business thing as their invention.
What I will say from our point of view is it's a real shame that it's Tim, Taka, and Klaas who end up getting any of the food, because I could make so many jokes about drop shipping right now.
Yeah.
And to be fair, drop shipping is exactly what Saunders did at the start of this season in the segment Who's Fucking Saunders?
Mm.
Jeez.
It's also hilarious watching this challenge knowing that Channel 4 literally did a show called Double Your Money only a few months ago, which I know someone who was on it.
Ryan and Abby?
It's a ostensibly a business show where I think they were given £250 to start with, and they had a week to do some sort of business idea of their choice to come back with double the amount. Anyone who didn't faced elimination. They couldn't use the same business idea from round to round, though.
Oh,
I
that's
think
interesting.
it maxed out at 20 grand.
Wow.
I think. I didn't watch it, but I know my friend didn't do particularly well on it. I think she went out in about the second or third episode.
Huh.
But yeah, it's hilarious to see WIDM basically invent another TV show for British TV.
How long did it take somebody to start selling feet pics?
I don't know if they were allowed to do that at 8 p.m. on Channel 4, to be honest. Although I am led to believe that it is a very lucrative market.
I mean, to be fair, 8 p.m. on Channel 4 is hamburger happy hour.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone is clamoring to see my size 13s, put it that way.
No.
Have you guys got much to say about the specifics of this challenge? Anything you want to highlight?
It was a lot of fun to watch, especially the impatience of the contestants with island time cooking.
I thought it was interesting that sort of they spend the entire challenge, stressing about the customers not having anything to eat, and then we never see any customer complain about it.
I think they just want to be on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really wouldn't be surprised if the locals were actually just set up to be there by production, to be honest. Because, let's be honest, at this point in the season, they're not doing particularly well pot-wise. This is a gimme challenge.
Yeah.
If they hadn't made the €1,000 out of this, something would have gone horrendously wrong.
Yeah.
I noticed the contestants communicated really well at the start of the challenge, where they just let Talk say everything that he needed to say. No one interrupted him. They just listened to him. He drew his wonderful map, and not only they came up with a really wise game plan from start to finish throughout this challenge.
Yeah.
It didn't seem chaotic.
Yeah, they respected the eater discipline.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like how Klaus is communicating with, because Taco doesn't want to be rude to the locals, that when he sees Klaus in the restaurant, they communicate in Dutch just so the locals don't know that they're just making fun of their the slowest cook in all of Hispaniola.
I can confirm island time is a real thing.
Yes, it is.
We had a lot of fun with island time when I was in the Caribbean. And it just been, it's 7 o'clock island time. Having said that, I'm very used to that with Logan Saunders time. You just add a good 10-15 minutes onto any time and it's fine.
The best thing is in the Philippines, where you have to remind the waiters and waitresses what you ordered. And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And that'll happen like 30% of the time. Like when Gianna and I would go out to restaurants, she'd be like, oh, I think I need to tell them that we ordered this. I'm thinking, we only ordered 2 things. Why do we have to remind them? I don't want to bother them. Otherwise, they'll spit my food. And Gianna said, no, trust me. I'm pretty sure they forgot. And every single time she was right, and the waiter would be like, oh yeah, that's right. You did order that. Wait another half an hour, please.
I'll also say, Bindles and I did discuss this earlier when we both watched the episode. We're setting the maximum on this challenge as 1250.
Yeah, I set it at 1500 at most, but yeah, that
Yeah,
might be
it's not a super big challenge.
Now, officially, it is an open-ended challenge. It could be on the scale of €1,000,000 karaoke,
yeah.
but realistically, they're not going to earn more than about 1250 on this challenge.
That woman in the kitchen was so slow.
The hilarious thing about it is we find out that service ends 2 hours and 15 minutes after it started. Most of that would have been the woman in the kitchen being super slow with the chicken.
Yeah, and Wordle wasn't even a thing yet.
They should have siphoned off some of the pesos and just bought her an air fryer at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. An air fryer and a Claus cooler.
Did you notice how Tim goes and talks to the guy and he says it's going to be 20 minutes? Then he disappears and then Class goes back and suddenly it's 25 minutes?
Yeah. Well, he's just really hoping they don't compare notes.
Yeah.
Tim just obviously has a more polite, friendly air.
Yeah.
So service ends at 8:15 and they celebrate with a beer in the plaza. Art then returns to confirm they earn 5,250 pesos, meaning that it's converted into 1,060 euros of 1250 for the challenge, 360 euros of 3750 for the episode, and 6,670 euros of 35,560 for the season so far.
I noticed that Anamika had a beer during the challenge.
I mean, understandable. We forgot the best sight gag of the entire challenge. Taka stealing Class's bike from the restaurant and then Class having to walk back to the thing with like a stack of 7 containers.
I will also say, in terms of forcible outfits on the mole, the waiter outfit was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had in all caps, the outfits are ridiculous.
Yeah. It was just the right side of silly for me.
Yeah. They spent the budget for this challenge on the uniforms and it was worth every cent.
Yeah, I think it was the thumbprint aprons and the bright green bow ties that really just made it work for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of the footwear was really inappropriate for being a waiter as well. So in the evening, Klaas proposes a deal with Anamika. She wants to know when he's using the black exemption, and in exchange he wants 5 of her yokers. However, she refuses, knowing a candidate would play the black exemption immediately, and having faith that she's on the right track, and she says she doesn't trust him. He is her mole.
He just completely shuts him down in that deal and just says, I know you're going to play the black exemption, so why would I give up my own yokers?
I mean, she's in a very interesting place because realistically, 6 yokers is probably enough to essentially be an exemption at this point. She also has an actual exemption. So what she can do is exactly what she does do. She gives away one of her yokers to Rob to try and drag him through as well. But she plays her 5 yokers this round, and then she still has a green exemption for if he doesn't play it next round. But guaranteed she's got the equivalent of an exemption regardless of when he plays that black exemption.
Yeah.
She's just trying to bait him and test him and see whether he is actually the mole or not. Because, as she says, a candidate would absolutely play the black exemption straight away. Because if you think you're on the right track, it pretty much guarantees you are going to get to Final Four. Then you can deal with the fact that you're competing against potentially 2 other people for the final spot in the final 3.
I should note that my assumption for what the mole sabotage was during the restaurant challenge is that they spoke in Spanish to the local chefs to slow down when cooking.
I can't remember if there is a sabotage in that challenge.
Neither do I.
There's a couple of glaring ones that you haven't spotted for regardless of who the mole is that Bindles and I have discussed after finishing recordings in those episodes, one of which was last week. But I don't remember there being one in the restaurant challenge. I think the mole took it fairly easy on them because of how bloody awful they have been for earning any source of money for the winner.
Yeah, they're solidly in, okay, you need to earn some fucking money for once mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want the mole to be a selfish, ugly person.
No. So on the morning of day 16, Anamika offers Rupp one of her yokers to try and get him through to the final 4 as well. and also to not be sitting at home watching the program, shouting at the TV, calling herself a selfish, ugly person. It is now time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home, except for the mole who can never go home. Anamika has a green exemption and 5 yokers. Tim has 6 yokers. Taka and Rop have 2 yokers, and Klaas has a black exemption. Taka says Tim is a bit clumsy, but it could be a tactic to mislead the others. They share a room and something still doesn't sit right with him, and he plays both of his yokers. Anamika and Klaas are still on Tim's list. She eventually saw which cameras were where and communicated badly with him. He plays his yokers. Klaas says Tim brought in his suitcase, which he didn't need to do as everyone else was messing up. He could be acting nicely as Mole, and Anamika also had control of what went wrong in that challenge. Anamika says she suspects Klaas, first on intuition but now on evidence. It would be wrong to change that after 6 successful executions. Tim is just as suspicious to her as Klaas is. He brings in money, but he seems to be untouchable, and she plays all 5 of her yokers. If Taka is the mole, Rop would eat his hat, but there are moments of complete idiocy from him. I think that might just be his personality, Rop. He's also ruled Anamika out, leaving just Tim and Klaas, and he plays his 2 yokers. Art then appears from behind them and tells them there is only one man they should be looking at, not him, but the man with the black exemption, to see whether it was played. However, you can already tell that he played the black exemption, because when Art walks in, he pats his pocket to make sure he knows exactly where the black exemption is.
I didn't notice that detail.
I had forgotten that Klaas does play the black exemption here, but I did spot that Art does tap his pocket as he's walking in to go, yep, the black exemption's in this one, we only get one shot to prove this. He always, you'll notice when the black exemption is played or anything like that, and he's got something to reveal pre-execution screens, he always puts it in the same pocket.
Yeah, so black exemption in this pocket, condoms in the other pocket. I make sure to use the right one.
As if Art uses a condom.
It's a little Pavlovian thing that I've noticed Art does over watching these historian seasons, is he always has them in the same pocket. But yeah, he does. You'll notice if you rewatch that scene, he taps his pocket to make sure, yep, it's still in that pocket. It's not falling out. It is quite a thin plastic disc. He does tap his pocket, so you can tell that the black exemption has been played before that. Historical question, though. Is this the most yokers that have been wiped out by a black exemption? Because it feels like it should be.
It really should be.
Because there's 11 between Anamika and Tim. Taka plays 2 and Rot plays 2, I think it is.
Yeah.
So that's what, 15?
Yeah, this would have to be the most thing, because I don't think there's ever even been that many in play before.
No. It feels like it should be if it isn't. However, what it didn't do is wipe out Anamika's exemption.
She's in the final 3!
She is. Unless she's a complete moron and doesn't play her exemption. I don't think it's a spoiler to say she does play her exemption.
Yeah, she's not Taka.
He also says for the first time this trip, the test came down to time. Klaas gets a green screen, as does a visibly nervous Tim and also Anamika, before Rot is knocked off the top spot and sent home. I don't think we ever find out who Rot tied with, do we?
I assumed it was Anamika, but...
Well, Anamika would have been like 6 points behind him then.
Yeah. Yeah, Anamika would have to be 3 points behind Rot for it to be Anamika. Because she played 5 yokers, he played 2.
But they were wiped out by the black exemption.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So that's why I assumed they tied when they were aligned in their coalition, so I assumed they would have fairly similar quiz results at that point in the game. I can't think of too many alliances at Final 5 where the 2 people in the alliance take the quiz completely differently.
I mean, bear in mind that up until last week, Rop did still suspect Anamika. There is a chance it wasn't Anamika, and I'm not trying to be a dick and mislead you or anything here. I genuinely can't remember, A, if they tell us who it was, and B, if it was Anamika or not. But, yeah. We don't know, I think is the honest answer. Anamika, however, does say that they shared a special bond. They were together from day one, and it's a major loss for the group. Not sure it is. He was, pretty boring.
Yeah.
He is one of the best people that Tim's met in the last few years, but to be fair, that does also include the guy who broke Tim's nose. Rop says he's still in shock, not because he knew he did well, but because it was just an amazing time that's now been cut short. It's only a fortnight, but you get so attached to everyone, and he says he was ready to reach the finale.
I'm gonna miss his Cosmo Kramer hair.
Well, this isn't necessarily the last we see of Rop on WIDM because he does end up doing Mole Talk inexplicably for years. I think, is he still doing Mole Talk?
I don't think so.
I can't remember. I think he did it for a good 5 or 6 years if he stopped doing it now. He is one of the more random choices that they could have made for Mole Talk, given that, no one remembers him.
I don't think he is.
No, it's he's been replaced by one of Big Splinter's ever-changing names.
Pikachu.
That's a fairly recent change, though. Up until a couple of years ago, he was hosting Mole Talk. Because if you search Mole Talk, Rop's picture is still there. I think it might have only been about a year or two ago that he stopped doing Mole Talk then.
Yeah. Well, Splinter was in Czechia, so...
Yeah, I don't think he took over Mole Talk straight after Czechia, though. I think it was maybe 2023 that Splinter took over. But yeah, for 5 or 6 seasons, Rop was one of the 2 presenters of Mole Talk. Inexplicably. So next time, it's the final chance officially to fill the pot. Anamika tells the Mole to shut it. The gains count down, and the final 4 are unleashed on the unsuspecting locals of the Dominican Republic. It's another fun episode next week.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Do we need to eulogize Rop? Does anyone care enough?
Kramer hair.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody get this far into the game without displaying any sign of a personality.
No. And if you think who are the 2 people who come after him in terms of 5th places,
Yeah.
you have Emanuela Greaves, then you just have the hilarity of Georgia. Jesus. I love that final 5 of Georgia so much. Rop is a letdown as a 5th placer in comparison.
Yeah.
Especially in comparison to Emanuela and Stina.
I mean, the one plus side is 2 seasons after Tico.
Very true. But even Tico wasn't a 5th placer. He was a 4th placer.
Oh yeah.
Jan Willem was 5th.
Yeah, I always get Tico and Jan Willem mixed up.
So, the important question first, who's fucking Saunders?
Anamika and Taka.
Sticking with last week's one. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm all in.
So is he, from what you've been saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what to say.
I was waiting for that.
To quote Taka in the moment of passion, I'm all in. And the final 3 questions. Who's the mole? Who's going home next? And the bonus question, what did the mole earn in the 4 in a row challenge?
So the mole earned the black exemption. My suspect list was Klaus, Rob, Anamika, Tim, Taka, and I think Taka's going home. Taka's out.
I don't think you've got a single elimination guess right this season so far.
Yeah, well, my odds are better than ever.
Arguably, you have been guessing Anamika and Taka a lot, and both of them are in the final 4, which is hilarious. But yeah, I don't think you've got a single one right so far. I'd have to go back and check because I've not edited any of the previous 6 yet.
Well, I know Anamika makes it to final 3, so...
I don't think we're spoiling much by saying that Anamika does play her green exemption at the final 4 test.
I would like to give my green exemption to Natalie.
Wide-eyed stare. Anything else you want to say about this episode?
No, I'm good.
I'm not thrilled about going to a restaurant in the Dominican Republic.
What about Haiti? Would you rather go to a Haitian restaurant?
No. If those are my 2 choices, then yes, I would eat in the Dominican Republic.
Thank you for confirming.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening to our VSML 2016 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for an old mole in the Dominican Republic. Don't forget you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us and contact at rtvwarriors.com. Logan is on the RC's formerly known as Twitter at Luxembourg. Bindles is a grim recapper, and I'm MJ Harmstone. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles. We'll see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
With a little bit of imagination, this is a good season.